Hey there, guys. Cubby and Jim here with this week's DC movie entertainment news. First up, this kind of got announced, I think it was like right after we filmed last week. Yeah. It's been a big rumor. It's been talked about. The pilot was already made. But Fox has officially picked up Gotham, the series. It's greenlit. It's going. It's going to happen.
For a full season.
Full season. One full season.
Which isn't a big surprise because they've already said we've spent a lot of money just to get the licensing. So no surprise that they do that. But it would have been a big surprise if they'd been like, this sucks.
I like that they're recycling their OC star for our Detective Jim Gordon, which is sweet. Bringing him back around. But either way, in other news, this was like yesterday, we got the trailer, the first like official look at the show, and it actually looks pretty good.
I can't tell if it's because I thought it would be so bad that the actual trailer looked good, or if it's just no, it actually looks good.
I mean, I'm not,
but it does. I was impressed.
I was really skeptical on Arrow, and I don't know if I might have said this the other day, but I was at a party, ended up staying over that night, and in the morning, an old friend of ours, she was watching Arrow, and I watched like the last 3 episodes of like this season. And I was like, holy crap, this show's awesome.
Great jumping.
So much, yeah, exactly. So much going on right now. What the hell? I'm missing out. So I'm really stoked on that. I want to get into that. I'm kind of giving these comic book shows a little more.
I was totally embarrassed because it's on CW. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Started watching. I'm like, damn
it,
it's good.
It has that cheesy soap opera-y part of like what makes comic books awesome.
It's a little worse.
But that's what makes comic books fun. Like, you know, that's what you want to read about. You want to see the big fights and the big stories, but at the same time, like Lois Lane and Clark Kent flirting while something's going on is awesome. Right now, Wonder Woman and Clark Kent, their book together where they're like flirting and fighting together. It's so cool because you want stuff like that to happen. But either way, the trailer looks awesome. I'm kind of excited. Truthfully, I don't like that it's Batman and it's Gotham and it's this because there's so many great fictional cities within the DC universe, so many great characters. I mean, I've been pushing forever for Hawkman to have kind of like a Raiders of the Lost Ark feel, like Last Crusade feel, where it's Indiana Jones. He's a dude who goes around, but he also has superpowers. And
see, that makes sense because I kind of thought that's what they were going to do, starting with Arrow and taking these sort of lesser known characters. But then when they did The Flash, I'm like, oh, that kind of maybe screwed up the movie.
The Flash is kind of important, though. Yeah. And then Gotham, I can see just because it's a very popular character, and these are things you want to see. But I also feel like these characters have been done many times over.
I really thought watching the trailer when they're like, before he was Batman, and they show Bruce Wayne, and then they show each of the, eventual villains, I thought for sure they were going to go, and Joker! And I'm like, oh, God, please don't. And they didn't. I was happy with that.
But that's one of those things that they'll probably bring up eventually.
Probably.
Which sucks. But anyways.
They didn't do it so far, so I was happy with that so far.
It looks pretty sweet. Hopefully it turns out to be really good. And hopefully this lights a little bit more fire and kind of gets people to do other stories. Shazam, Blue Beetle, Booster Gold. That could be an awesome... Yeah, exactly. Especially if they do a lot of other shows and they kind of do what Booster Gold eventually became, where he's like this hero that no one knows about. Everyone thinks he's a dick, but no, actually I'm saving everyone and I have to pretend I'm an asshole to all you guys. And
he'd be on TV.
And he'd be on TV. He'd be on TV, yeah, exactly. So that'd be sweet, but whatever.
Well, one nice thing about this sets up is clearly there's a division. DC movies, DC TV. Yeah. And I think this becomes wholly apparent, so we don't have to worry about any of that.
Well, but
Marvel's...
But I like what Marvel's doing, especially after Captain America. Yeah, it definitely is very different. In other entertainment news, I think this is pretty much the only other thing. Yeah. More TV news. This is Vertigo, though. Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg are still writing, still doing everything. And he was promoting Neighbors, Seth Rogen was. And he was talking about the project a little more. I think it was the Slash film. But either way, he's talking a little bit about what they're doing with it. And it said that they were going to change some stuff. And I was kind of like, oh, that sucks. But they were talking about it, or he was talking about it in the writer's room with whoever else they're working with. And he's saying, we're actually just going to explore a little bit more of what was there. Things that might not have been explored a little bit, which is kind of a trend nowadays with things that are, brought up.
And they
changed, adapted, whatever.
In the article, they alluded to The Walking Dead and its popularity on AMC. And it's one of the things we've heard with Kirkman and working on the comic book versus the TV show, is there's things he did in the comic book that he's like, I maybe not should have done that because it made it harder storytelling down the line. So he kind of made some, now I'm not saying the TV show is exactly the comic book, but he made some of those changes in the TV show. And I'm wondering if that's kind of what they're almost like not learning from mistakes, but be like, oh, okay, I see what they did there. Let's kind of maybe do this and change
the only difference I can see is Walking Dead isn't a finite story.
Yes.
At this point in time, it's a completely infinite story. Robert Kirkman's gone on multiple times to say that he can easily do 500 issues of this book, no problem. So, cool. That's awesome. That's great. But Preacher is a limited run. It ended. It has a definite ending. It has a full-on story, beginning, middle, and end. So I think that being said, it makes it easier to kind of do it on TV. Certain things you might not be able to do, certain things you might be able to do. But the fact that it's on AMC, they've kind of been pushing the boundaries a little more. I mean, if you watch the first season of Mad Men compared to now, yeah, you're not going to see tits, but like...
Breaking Bad, holy crap.
But you still hear a lot more curse words, a lot more mature themes. Stuff like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. A lot of the other shows that are coming out now especially are doing that too. And I was watching Parts Unknown, the new Anthony Bourdain show. I mean, it's not that new, but the newer one. And he was in Vegas cussing up a storm. He was in Mexico City. He was cussing up a storm. And it's kind of like people are kind of being a little more lax on that. And I'm not saying you need to cuss constantly in a Preacher comic book. You kind of have to. But I mean, you're kind of dealing with demons and angels and devils and, you know, really, really crazy themes. Yeah, exactly. Which is awesome. And I really want to see that. And I feel like we're at a good time for things like that.
Well, that's why I like the decision that it was put on TV. I'm so glad they didn't like, well, let's make a 2-hour movie. Or, hey, let's make 2 2-hour movies. Or let's make a trilogy. It's like, no. I like the idea
of simple thing.
A TV show.
Yeah.
We can get as much or as little as we want. I like that.
I feel comic books are more, they're storyboards in a long format pretty much. And that makes them really good to be movies. But I think at the same time, since they're serialized and they're longer, they're bigger stories. Something like Old Man Logan, which is a 6-issue series, amazing. But it's only 6 issues, and that would be awesome to see in a movie. 2 hours, that's great. But if you have something like Preacher, which was, don't quote me, but I think it was like upwards of 60 issues. That's definitely more of a serialized big run. I don't want that another thing, I think we talked about this last week. DC announced they're actually working on 9 other titles. Yeah. All the ones that are rumored, or is that what we're thinking? All the ones
that they've been rumored or talked about a little bit, and now they're like, like Justice League Dark. We talked about that. Guillermo del Toro.
That's still kind of like up in the air, but Guillermo del Toro wants to do that, or at least last we heard he wants to do that. Another one that was in that is
Shazam.
Shazam, but that we've kind of talked about with people already attached to it is Sandman, or a Neil Gaiman one. That would be cool to see, but I feel like that would be a better movie one, or a better show one instead of movies.
I think that's kind of, not that it's like The Preacher, but I think that's a...
But another one that they were mentioning too, my favorite comic book series pretty much ever, Fables. I want to see that so badly on screen, but I'm kind of thinking it shouldn't be on the big screen. There's a lot to that story. And yeah, you don't have to put it all on there. You don't have to have every beat of every story ever to kind of get the Fable story.
No,
you don't need it.
I see what you're saying, though. That would be good.
But I want that. I'd rather have that on HBO or something like that, because when I first read that, that was one of those books to like, the first indie book to really get me to be like, this doesn't have to have tights and capes and those themes. Like, yeah, it has mature themes, but at the same time, like, a little kid is probably going to pick up this book, so we can't have certain things. That was a book to be like, yes, it has fairy tale characters. Yes, it has all this crazy stuff, but like, Pinocchio's pissed off all the time because the fairy didn't turn him into an adult or didn't give him the ability to grow up. So he's constantly a boy. But hey, guess what? He went through puberty like thousands of years ago, and he can't get laid ever. Like,
that's why I love,
that's so cool. Just a tiny detail.
The twists on the fairy tales that we know or grew up with. They're like, turn on my edge a little bit. I love that.
So I really wish those things will happen. It seems like they might. I guess we got to wait till see what happens with Justice League and the Man of Steel sequel. So I'm really excited for DC entertainment stuff.
It seems like it's finally coming together, because when we were at Comic-Con, they're like, Batman vs. Superman. We're like,
what?
You guys shooting from the hip there. Doesn't make sense. But now it seems like they're getting their shit together.
Yes. So let us know what you guys think in the comments below. What movies do you want to see? Do you care? Let us know.